pilgrimage of faith in a changing and uncertain world,
we do not walk alone. The Lord is with us.
we remember all those who taught us faith.
That cloud of witnesses whose example burns bright in our memory.
God of grace, by whose love the world exists,
Show us your face once again and reveal to us your glory.
let's honor all the saints by singing For All the Saints, found on page 711.
So, I have a question for you this morning. Have you ever had anyone, a parent or relative, tell you that you remind them of somebody that passed away before you were born? but somehow you're kind of like, okay, Benny, so what have you heard about yourself that's like?
I've heard I'm a lot like my great grandfather.
In what way?
I look very similar and I act very similar. And I have his hair.
So you have your great grandpa's hair and personality and everything
Face.
else, pretty much, and
Yeah.
face. Okay. What about you, Maggie? Anybody ever say anything like that about you? So you're totally unique in your family.
No, I'm not.
We don't.
Am I like anyone?
You're not
What's your
claiming.
grandmother's name?
No, I have my grandma's name.
Okay, well, that's something. I've always heard from the time I was really little that I'm just like my grandpa, my mom's dad, even though he died a good 10 years before I was born. But we sneeze the same, and we have the same like little catchphrases, even though I just came up with them on my own like he did. And we're both silly in kind of similar ways. Peas in a pod, but I never got to know him. And I think, so today is All Saints Day, and it's a time where we set aside to remember those that have gone before us, those who are no longer with us. And on days like today, I think about what legacy means. And I think some legacy is genetic, the sneeze thing, I guess that's a genetic thing, your face, your hair. And some legacy is in the way that we're taught to treat people, it's in the example that's set. And I think that pretty much everyone I know here has had a good legacy, a good example set for them by the people that came before. So it's our job now to be the good legacy for the people that are going to come on after us. So maybe you'll be a great grandpa to somebody with the same hair and face and personality, and at least someone will get your name. Well, thank you both for helping me out so that you can go back to your seats. At this time, we're going to honor all of those in our community who have passed on this year by singing the Litany of the Saints. Lord have mercy.
Lord have mercy.
Christ have mercy.
Christ have mercy.
Lord have mercy.
Lord have mercy.
Mary and Joseph.
Pray for us.
Michael and all angels.
Pray for us.
And Joachim,
Pray
Elizabeth.
for us.
Elijah, Moses, John the
Pray
Baptist.
for us.
Isaac, Sarah, Abraham.
Pray for us.
Jacob, Joseph, Samuel.
Pray for us.
Ruth, David, and
Pray
Solomon.
for us.
Isaiah, Jeremiah.
Pray for us.
All you holy men and women, pray for us. Peter, Paul, and
was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, See how he loved him. But some of them said, Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, Take away the stone. Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead 4 days. Jesus said to her, Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked upward and said, Father, I thank you for having heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out! The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped with cloth. Jesus said to them, Unbind him and let him go. The word of God.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. God is with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. O God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So here's the thing. I hate delegating responsibilities. I hate when there are things that I need to get done that I can't do myself. And there's lots of reasons for this. If you want something done right, you have to do it yourself, which I really think is a catchy way of saying I'm arrogant. So, if the shoe fits. But I think the biggest reason is that I'm a deeply impatient person. Nobody ever does anything quickly enough for my liking. And here's the real kicker. It's not like when I'm handed a task by somebody else, I immediately put it at the top of my to-do list. I just want other people to do that for me. Because arrogant. It's hard putting your needs in somebody else's hands. It's hard waiting on somebody else to do something you need to be done. So, can you imagine how Mary and Martha must have felt waiting on Jesus to show up and heal their brother? A little before the passage that Ginny read for us today, we learned that Mary and Martha called on Jesus and asked him to come visit the moment they knew Lazarus was sick. See, Mary and Martha and Lazarus and Jesus, they were all buddies. They were friends. They knew each other quite well. So you would think that Jesus would prioritize the healing of such a good friend, right? So Jesus gets the news that Lazarus is sick, and he waits around 2 whole days before setting off to go visit him. He stays in this little town called Bethabara, and he heals the sick there. He does some preaching there. You know, typical Jesus stuff, all while his friend is dying. He's out in Bethabara healing total strangers while Lazarus wastes away, finally, 2 whole days after getting the news. Jesus leaves Bethabara, and he makes his way to Bethany, where Lazarus lives. Now, the distance between Bethabara and Bethany is about 15 miles, which for people used to walking everywhere all the time, that's about a day's journey. And yet somehow Jesus manages to not arrive in Bethany until Lazarus has already been dead for 4 days. Now, we're not told exactly how long Lazarus was sick, before he died. But even if he died later on, the same day Mary and Martha told Jesus he was sick, the math would still indicate that Jesus took his sweet old time. You would think that if you learned a loved one was gravely sick, it would put some pep in your step. You wouldn't want to be wasting any time. So when Jesus finally arrives in Bethany, Mary and Martha are distraught. Mary falls at Jesus' feet and says, "If you had only been here, my brother wouldn't have died." And she's not saying that in the sense of, "Oh, if only, but what are you going to do?" No, she's saying that with accusation in her voice. The subtext here is, "Jesus, where the heck were you? We're your friends. You could have come sooner, but you didn't, so why?" The reason I know she's angry is because of the word used to describe what she's doing. Most English translations say she's weeping. But Greek is a lot more specific of a language than English. The Greek word used here is anibre masato, which roughly translates to the sound of grief and anger. It's the same root word as the Greek word for that snorting sound that a horse makes when it's about to kick you in the face. You know what I'm talking about. The Greeks do have a specific word for that. So Mary isn't just sad, she isn't just heartbroken, she is fit to be tied. And Jesus sees her anger and her sadness and is deeply moved by that. Now, what exactly those emotions consist of, we can't be sure. Maybe Jesus is feeling some sort of guilt over how Mary is taking all of this. Not in the sense that there isn't an ultimate plan in place here, but in the sense that Mary's just a person. And she's had an awful week, and as far as she knows, Jesus could have made it better, but chose not to. It's sort of like how my mom tells me the story of when I got all my shots before starting kindergarten. And how I screamed and I cried and I wailed and I gnashed my teeth because I hated needles. And even though she knew she was doing it for my own good, even though she was making me get my shots because she loves me and because she was protecting me and taking care of me, she still felt so guilty and so upset. So moved to compassion by how distressed I was because I couldn't possibly understand. I didn't know the importance of getting vaccinated. I just know there were sharp things in my arm and I didn't like it. She felt so bad that she let me buy whatever toy I wanted afterwards. I picked a Mulan doll. We can believe that everything Jesus did from the moment he got the news that Lazarus was sick was by design and according to a larger purpose. We can believe that. And we can still believe that in that moment Jesus feels heartbroken for what his beloved friends are going through. Jesus is moved to compassion because he knows that his friends can't possibly understand the importance of the way this is being handled. They don't know anything about any grand design. From their perspective, their friend let them down and their brother is dead. And Jesus knows how they feel. And he feels it right along with them. Jesus doesn't get defensive here. He doesn't say, "Listen up, Mary, do you know who you're talking to? I'm God. Do you really think I just made a mistake?" No, he doesn't do any of that. He just cries with her. He knows Lazarus is going to be up and about again in a few minutes. And he still grieves with Mary. Because she grieves. And that's reason enough. I've met a lot of people and families who inadvertently or on purpose stuff down their own grief out of the misguided notion that grieving somehow indicates a lack of faith that their loved one is in a better place. I say, geez, just let it out. Jesus wasn't too good to grieve. He wasn't too holy to be bogged down by earthly things or whatever spin you want to put on it. Jesus wept. Jesus wept for a man who he knew wouldn't stay dead. And he wept for the family that loved him. There's nothing wrong with grieving. You can grieve and believe and hope all at the same time. Jesus did. So then Jesus walks up to the tomb where they've laid Lazarus, and he asks that the stone sealing the front of the tomb be rolled away. And there is some definite hesitation in following through on those orders. Jesus, it's gonna smell in there. The King James Version says it like this: He stinketh. He stinketh. Which is true. There's been a dead body in there for 4 days. Speaking of the whole 4 days thing, that detail really matters. All of the little details always matter. You see, at the time, people had this belief that for the first 3 days after somebody was dead, the spirit hung around. And therefore, there was still a chance that the spirit could re-inhabit the body. They still buried them right away after death, but ancient Jewish burial consisted of wrapping somebody in cloth and putting them in a cave, so it's not like if they were buried alive, it would be the end of the world. They'd just scream and someone would move the stone, and it was all good. Now, I don't know exactly where this 3 days concept came from. It probably has something to do with the fact that some diseases lowered pulse and respiration to the point that it seemed like somebody was dead to someone who didn't have the medical equipment to know otherwise. So someone would be buried and then, whoops, awake in 2 days. That coupled with the universal love of the number 3 that people have for some reason, and you get believing that the spirit doesn't go on to the next life for 3 days. But this is day 4. So maybe if Jesus had gotten there yesterday, there would still be hope for resurrection, but not today, not on day 4. All hope is lost by day 4. You see, now the explanation for why Jesus had to waste so much time getting there is becoming clearer. Because it had to be clear to everyone present that this is a miracle. This isn't just Lazarus' spirit deciding to pop back into his body. This is a true, beyond the grave, beyond all hope, resurrection. Jesus commands Lazarus to come out of the tomb, and he does, good as new. And this is a wonderful story for Lazarus and Mary and Martha. But what about for Hilda, or Marion, or Jane, or Rose, or Shirley, or Lois, or Linda? Okay. What about for their loved ones? What about for us? Just like at the beginning of the story, Mary and Martha feel resentment for those other folks in that other town that Jesus healed, while their brothers suffered and died. I think it can be easy to feel resentment for stories of miracles and healings when our loved one didn't get their miracle. But as hard as it may be, this is the part where faith comes in. For those of us who grieve today, what we can take away from this story is that Mary and Martha did not have the full picture. They didn't know the plan. They had no idea the events being set into motion, and neither do we. And our grief is valid, and our anger is valid, and Jesus grieves with us. We're not alone in any of it. But also, Mary and Martha learned that there is a resurrection coming, perhaps not on this side of life, but on the other side of it. God is at work in and through death in ways we can't comprehend. Jesus experienced death, and so will all of us. But life isn't just something that happens until you die. It happens after it too. Life and death and life again. That's the path for all of us. We don't get to skip any of those pieces. So grieve today, if you got to. Grieve as long and hard as you need, but don't forget there is hope and love and joy where grieving ends and life begins again. I invite you to join in singing our hymn of response, found on page 348 of the Big Red Hymnal.